Final Destination 5 once again sees death hunting down the survivors of a major tragedy. After so many entries in the franchise, you might wonder if the creativity in the deaths would start to diminish. So join us today as we revisit the Final Destination. At least until Part 6 comes out. Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, that is Tim.
Yo, what up, my screamlings?
Oh god. This is a horror movie podcast. We get together, we talk about a horror movie. It's really quite that simple.
You don't like me shouting out the screamlings?
Sometimes you just hit me with some really new things, right at the start of the show with no warning. I'm not saying you have to clear it with me beforehand, but a heads up. Maybe I should know. Maybe I should know by now, just to expect the unexpected. But yeah, so coming up on this episode, we'll be talking about Final Destination 5. We have been working through the franchise, but one per month for the last little bit. And this, of course, is the newest entry until the 6th one, which is apparently coming. But with HBO Max's current predicament, who knows?
Yeah.
They scrapped Batgirl, maybe they'll scrap Final Destination 6 as well, but hopefully we'll get to see it and we can check it out later in the year. But so this is the 5th film, and I mean, obviously we always start spoiler free. I give you a warning before we get into spoilers. We'll give some general thoughts. There's not really much to say in spoiler free before we just give general impressions, other than premise wise it's the same as before, except the incident that starts, a big bridge incident where a bridge collapses, and that's pretty much it. Like anything else would be spoiling deaths or spoiling things that happen in the movie. So death chases them down one by one, and there we go. That's the flick. Now, I remember this having maybe some of the worst characters of the series from when I first saw it. I've only seen this once before. I watched it today, which was, in fact, this is the only one in the series that I saw in the theater, actually, funnily enough.
Now, this had to have been 3D, right?
It was all, I think they didn't lean on it as much, but it was also 3D, yeah.
Okay.
It was still in that era.
If not, I would have been surprised.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think the movie itself does much with it. Or it's not too in your face, but I think the opening credits are pretty the 3D centric.
Yeah, it's not like the whole movie is trying to be, but there's definitely like one or two kills that are like very in your face. That I was like, okay, that if that wasn't for 3D, I don't know what they're doing.
They definitely reined it in though, because like the 4th movie, every kill was like, this is in 3D, and you're going to know it's in 3D by the way it does stuff. They went a bit more subtle, I guess, with this one. You know what I call it that.
It's a series known for its subtlety.
Of course, yes. Death's a silent killer. So, I mean, I'll just ask the question, I guess. What I was going to say was, I remember the characters and maybe some of the acting being some of the worst, but having a relatively decent time because it didn't take itself as seriously as some of the other entries. Which, because obviously one of my favorite things about 2 is that it really did sort of lean more black comedy at points and kind of had a more light tone to it. So I was curious to see how I'd feel coming back to it and watching it again, especially in the context of watching through them all and having them all fresh in my head to compare and contrast and all the rest of it. So, Tim, how do you generally feel about Final Destination the 5th?
So, like I've said before in the other reviews, I've seen these films very recently, like just a few years ago. I hadn't really seen any of them, and then I kind of did like a big, or except for the 4th one I saw in theaters randomly, but most of them I hadn't seen before, and then I did a marathon like a few years ago. Now, I'm pretty sure that I watched this one at that time, but I really did not remember a goddamn thing from it. If I'm not sure if I did see this before, but if I did, it basically felt like a new watch for me.
I feel like you'd remember the ending if you'd seen it before.
Yeah. Which, man, we'll get into that.
Oh yeah, that's spoiler territory, obviously, but yeah.
So, man, this one I think is really, really strange. like you were kind of talking about, how some of them take more seriously and some of them are a little bit of a lighter tone. So what I think is kind of funny in redoing or rewatching these movies is that, like the odd number ones, those ones tend to be, the ones that were like a bit more serious. They felt like they were going for kind of more dramatic tone. And then 2 and 4, I feel like the ones that were the ones that, were a bit more comedic and, and just had like a bit more fun with it. And those was the ones that I tended to enjoy more. And then this one, it kind of seems like a weird mix of like both of those things, because I feel like the characters in the stories, well, I guess more like the main characters, like some of the side characters are like straight up out of like sitcoms or like goofy comedy stuff.
Yeah, PG Byrne, or PJ Byrne, sorry, I say that right. PJ Byrne is an actor I've seen pop up in a lot of things. He's been a very serious character in some things like Black Lightning, and he was in Big Little Lies, but then he's also been really goofy in, say, The Boys, and he's in this. He's like the pervert, I guess, the goofy pervert character. So I was like, oh, he's in this. Todd Packer from The Office, which I didn't realize till later in the movie, but they work for a paper company in this, and I was like, that has to be intentional. That has to be it, because this is 2010 or 11, so The Office would have been like season 3-ish about now.
Yeah, so that definitely seemed intentional, but I mean, we got to get into whatever the hell's going on with this workplace and this retreat, because I have like a million questions. But I mean, we'll save that. So yeah, so this is really weird to me, because it seems like the main kind of characters and the main thrust of the story feels very serious and dramatic, but then when it comes time for like the kills, like a lot of the kills are very silly, but like the movie kind of feels like it's still trying to portray them like kind of dramatic. Like the the music is still very like serious, and like it feels like the just the way it looks and the way they're showing it, like it never really feels like it's going for a more comedic tone, but like the deaths themselves do get very silly. So I don't know, it's a very weird mixed bag. You were kind of mentioning this one having some bad acting and bad characters. So I will agree. I feel like aside from the first Final Destination movie, every movie after that has to have just like the most bland like main character. Like this franchise is just full of incredibly bland, boring protagonists, and I think the guy in this apologies to the actor, but I think he's just like so goddamn boring in this. It was almost painful. Like there's enough like fun side characters that it's not too bad, but I just don't know why the series always feels like having just really, I feel like just bland, forgettable main characters. But and I think it looks bad. There's like definitely some bad CGI, some bad special effects. The actings and stuff isn't that great, but I guess I do kind of have to give it credit when it comes to the kills. I thought a lot of the kills were actually surprisingly pretty fun. I feel like I was kind of gearing myself up to this being like a bit more of a painful watch, which I definitely don't think it's a great movie. A lot of it is just having to do with just extremely uninteresting, boring characters that are thrusting the film forward. But I almost had fun with like pretty much every kill. So I don't know, I guess I don't know, it's a bad movie, but it's not like the most egregious or least enjoyable watch. Like I guess I had enough fun with it to be like give it maybe a slight recommend if you're a fan of the franchise, or if you're gonna marathon them. Like you're probably here for the kills anyway, so there's enough fun to be had with that. But I mean, overall though, like I don't know, it's not my favorite movie of the series by far.
No, it's not my favorite. I mean, obviously 2 is the favorite.
Yeah, by like a huge margin too.
by a pretty big margin, yeah. I think the kills are mostly really fun. I think the fact that it treats them kind of seriously, even though they're really goofy, is kind of what makes them better than they are, because it kind of it's just that thing where when a bad movie's intentionally being bad to be funny, it's not that good. But when it's unintentionally being bad, that's when it's funny. And I think that them taking the kills very seriously when they're doing really silly stuff, at least I don't think it's like being so dramatic to the point where it's kind of ruining the fun of it at the very least. So we'll talk about obviously some of the kills and all the rest of it. There's some bad lines and things like that are kind of amusing. I mean, I guess the best thing to say is that it really is like a slasher movie sequel where there's a lot of good kills, but the characters aren't that great necessarily. You know, there's some funny like moments, there's some questionable logic at times. I think the big points I give this movie, and I think I probably felt this when I first watched it, but having watched them like all close together for this, I can say definitively now, this movie avoids so much of what I'm sick of in this franchise, just because it's avoiding certain things. Like, I appreciated so much that we didn't have to do like tons of the watching the signs bullshit. There's like hardly any of that in this one. Like obviously you get the vision at the start that kind of does the big thing, but there's not a lot of like weird little moments before that. Like what you know, you don't start getting them till it's like properly the start of the vision, and then after that there's not all these little signs that they're noticing around where the main character's noticing signs of how someone else might die. Like that is completely gone, and I am so thankful. It was bogging down so much of like 3 especially, a bit of 4, but certainly a lot of 3. So I really appreciated that, and there's actually kind of a reason for some of it, which we can't talk about until spoilers. But like I did appreciate that quite a bit. So that kind of like won some credit with me as it was going forward. It would, you know, because like normally in these movies, when the first person gets killed after, you know, the accidents happened and death starts hunting them down, like immediately there's like conspiracy, immediately there's these ideas. It was actually almost refreshing in this that no one really like took it as a bad sign. They're just, oh, that's really unfortunate, let's just go about our day until the next kill happened, you know. So it got to sort of play out more like they're unsuspecting for a while until you know, things really hit the fan and whatever. So I think I like this a bit more than you do. I agree it's a bad movie though, because it does have, you know, I think the lead actor is not good at all. I think his love interest, Molly, I think she's pretty weak in this. Now, maybe they're better in other things, but I think in this movie, neither of them have anything approaching like likability or charisma.
They're just like so uninteresting. Like it's not even like I feel like they're bad. To me, they're just like almost nothing, which I guess is kind of worse. Like, because at least if you're, you know, like really over the top bad, you know, that can sometimes be entertaining or cheesy. But I don't know, to me, they're just like, yeah, like you said, they have like no charisma or whatever. It's just like
I
staring at paint dry.
Is bad. Maybe it's not a reflection of the bad acting per se. Maybe it's a reflection of you know, bad directing, because this director's not done much. This director only did a couple of films after this. This was his first feature length. And the other thing is probably maybe just the script, because I mean the first scene we see them together, it's just her like saying, you know, like we're through, like this isn't working out, we're breaking up kind of thing. But it's done in such a sort of low-key way that just, it doesn't feel like an entrance to the movie. It feels like just kind of a like a thrown together like scene, and I never really feel invested in any way, shape or form. Not that I expect to feel invested in a relationship in a Final Destination movie, but even on like simple terms, you know, it doesn't work in any respect. It just feels completely flat. And so that's kind of a thing that's there, and you know, like. So, but that said, though, I think this is better than 4. I'm just going to say it.
Oh, hard disagree.
I think this is more fun in 4 because the kills are more fun by and large.
I don't know. I just think this one like just really looks bad and the characters are so annoying. I don't know. I don't think 4 is a good movie either, but I think I had more fun with it than this one. But
I think this gets absurd enough for me, and because it avoids the, oh, I've done some research, there was this flight 180 blah blah blah, like, because it avoids all that crap, like it does have some weird structure problems. Like, it doesn't really feel like it has a build going into its like last act. It kind of just feels like, oh, I guess this is what the final kind of like plot's going to be to wrap things up with, but it didn't really feel like it was building to it in any big way, and we'll talk about what that is and like why it feels that way when we get into spoilers. But I would say that it's fun enough because the kills are good, and fundamentally that's what I want. Yeah, would I like it to have fun characters like 2? Obviously, that's why 2 is like actually good. That's the one of the series that I say is actually good. But I can really enjoy this in like a sort of bad slasher movie sequel kind of way, where the one thing it gets right is the kills, and because of that I'm into it. And it, it's not a long movie; it's like 90 minutes. It
goes by fast.
Yeah, it goes through everything. I will agree there's some dodgy effects here or there, but I will say I did think they were improved from 4. There was definitely impalements and things like that I and you see them again. There's like a reel of the kills at the end of the movie, of the past movies.
Oh sure, yeah.
So you see them again, so they're quite fresh in my head again. Like I think those similar types of kills do look a bit better here. They're still CG, but they look
maybe a bit, but like
they don't look cartoony.
It's like a huge leap.
Well, the other comparison I would make is in 4 there was those like dreams of like the things that were going to cause deaths, and it was like this excuse to have like these really bad 3D CG models spinning around in a dream sequence. Right? The opening titles for this has like CG objects like coming through glass that's got the credits on them. I thought that looked notably better than the CG models in the dreams from 4. So
probably, yeah. I mean, I'd probably have to see them like back to back to see if it's like a huge difference. But I mean, obviously, it should be at least a little better because it's years later.
It felt big to me, but I mean, again, if I compared them side by side, maybe. But I remember those looking laughably cartoony, and when I saw these here, I thought, oh, those look fairly high quality, right? They look good enough, kind of thing. Whereas the dream sequences in 4 felt like some students' like project that they did for class. Like that's really what they felt like.
Yeah.
Today, kids, you're going to learn how to use AutoCAD, and you're going to model an iron that can rotate in 3D space.
Yeah.
So yeah. But it's not a good movie, but I have fun with this because the kills are silly and fun enough, and they're frequent enough as well that I have a decent time with it. But
I mean, it's I don't think we're too far off. I mean, I had fun too. Again, mostly or pretty much all because of the kills, but it's interesting that you like 4 a bit more than I do, and I admitted that 4 was better than I remembered, but I think I do like 5 a bit more just because it's silly enough that and I do think the ending's fun. It's not as smart as the movie probably thinks it is, but I do think it's a fun ending. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting it, and then like as I kind of the wheels started to turn in my head, and I was like, oh wait a minute, is this what they're doing? Like I was like, okay, that's fun.
Yeah.
It's unnecessary, maybe kind of stupid, but it's who cares.
You definitely get the impression this was like they sort of thought of this as being the last one for at least now when they made it, because because it has been like 11 years since this came out.
Yeah.
And we're only just now getting a 6th movie of some kind. So
the one, I don't know if you call it a big thing, but one thing I definitely didn't need in this movie is another, police subplot.
Oh sure,
like and it's not like it takes up a lot of the movie or whatever, but it's just like anytime they're doing that stuff, it's like we can't do this. Like we need to get to the kills. Like we can't have this extra stuff going on.
Well, that's why it's lucky it's so quick. I mean, this is a complaint in a way, but in this movie, because most of it's not good, you're happy that they're all undercooked. But a lot of the plot threads in this movie do feel underdeveloped in the sense that they just kind of happen and you just kind of go along with it. And the the investigator played by Courtney B. Vance, who's like looking into stuff, like it actually doesn't have that much time, which is good, but it also feels kind of absurd that he's even suspicious of anything, because no one person could have caused what happened on that bridge. It's not it's not like explosives went off or anything like that. It was like it just started falling apart because of the wind. And he's being really suspicious and talking to the main character because people heard him have a vision and he ended up saving a bunch of people. But I'm like, what did you think he did? Especially since during this interview that's happening, and he's interviewing a few of the people that survived after it early in the movie. He he's talking to one of them and he mentions, he just got dumped by his girlfriend. So he's like, just dumped by his girlfriend. Hey, that's a possible motive. And I'm like, what? He get dumped right before they got on the bus. What plan did he concoct in that time to take down a bridge? Like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Also, like, his girlfriend survives, obviously.
Yes, she wasn't killed in it, so yeah. So the logic. So this is what I'm talking about, where some of the bad stuff is silly enough that I'm kind of like, okay, yeah. I'm kind of into the stupidity of this.
I do think they add like some interesting new like wrinkles or rules, into the series, which was kind of nice. And I don't think it's a spoiler to say like that his the main character's girlfriend Molly. She actually survives in the vision, which
that's right, yeah.
Means she's kind of safe throughout the movie, which I think that's an interesting thing to do. Like, we haven't really seen that before.
Well, to be fair, she could just die after he does.
Well, in the vision, it looks like she was pretty clear of the bridge. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that can still happen, I guess, but.
Yeah, I guess that's the argument, and that is interesting. But I was thinking, like, this could just mean she dies after you.
That's fair, yeah.
Like, just because you don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Because that's clearly where the vision ends. It's when he gets killed. So
in this universe, like, things are constantly flying through the air at very dangerous speeds.
So. But we joked last time about lawsuits to various places. There's a couple in this movie that are facing some serious lawsuits about what happens. Let me tell you.
I will say one thing. It was just kind of weird watching this. I actually used to have like a weird fear. Well, I don't know if it's weird, but I actually did kind of have a fear of bridges. Like when I was young, like I hated anytime we would have to drive over a bridge because I just would automatically imagine it collapsing. So like, like, I don't know, like, and I actually, like when I was like really young, I actually used to hold my breath while we'd cross a bridge because I guess maybe I was like a little OCD or something. Like, because I don't know, I thought holding my breath would help not make the bridge collapse or whatever. So it was just kind of funny watching this and being like, oh yeah, that's the thing that used to scare me. I still don't love going over bridges, but I don't like freak out or anything.
Are you scared of flying as well?
No, but I don't like being on in buildings on like really high up floors. Like,
sure,
if I was in a hotel and I was staying on like the 26th floor, it's not like I won't do it, but it's like, let's say if I'm up there, it'll just be like a little thing in the back of my head every now and again. I'll be like, oh, you could fall right through this floor. And it's like, I know it's not gonna happen. And like and sometimes I'm even like that if I'm in like a city that has like subways or something. Like if I'm in New York and they have like these layers of like subways, and like I don't know, sometimes just walking on the street I'll be like, oh, there's a subway right underneath me. Like what's gonna stop me from just like the earth just opening up and me falling down?
There's a track record of the earth not doing that, so that's probably the best evidence to suggest that.
Yeah. I know it's an irrational fear, but it's just like one of those things I have.
Yeah, I don't necessarily like super tall buildings, but I don't think I've got an irrational fear of heights, because people who have irrational fear of heights like are scared if they're like up a small ladder. I don't really care about that.
Right.
It's when I'm up so high that I feel like, oh, a gust of wind could just throw me over the edge, and that would be it. Like, so, but I don't know if that's irrational or just a perfectly rational fear of heights.
Yeah.
But anyway, so. So there's some silly stuff. But we'll get into the whole shebang. So I think we'll give the spoiler warning and we can get into the movie and work through it. So full spoilers for Final Destination 5 from this point on. You have been warned. Mm-hmm. So there's opening titles right away. There's no like pre-credit sequence or anything like that. And then
the credit sequence felt long.
It was pretty long. It felt like they were milking it. It's like they had to hit 90 minutes, so they're like, okay, let's do an extra. Let's stretch this out for a minute just to hit that arbitrary amount of time. So yeah, we're introduced immediately. Like it's all people who work at this paper company who are going on a retreat, so they're all meeting up outside and having a drink. And when I say drink, I just mean like it's like picnic style stuff. and they're going to go on a coach to whatever. I don't even think they mention where they're going. I have no idea what this trip was for.
they like say like a corporate retreat or something, but
yeah,
seems fishy.
it's all a bit suspect.
Like I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe a lot of places do this, but like the whole idea of like corporate retreat sounds like one of those things you see a lot in like sitcoms or movies that doesn't actually happen in real life. At least not that much anymore. Because I mean, my God, the idea of a company actually like spending money to, like transport people and stuff seems ridiculous. All right, but so the thing that was like kind of like driving me crazy at first was like figuring out like why all these people are together, because like it should be that they all like work together, but like the main character, he's like a chef, right? Like he doesn't work for this company, right?
Well, I think he works for the company, but he's also a chef, and he's like thinking of leaving soon to go and take a bigger role as a chef. Because there's a joke at the start where his friend, who's his supervisor, right, that's sort of the next main guy,
eyebrows,
Peter Friedkin. Actually, later on in the movie, when his hair's down, he's a bit disheveled. I thought he kind of looked like a disheveled Tom Cruise. Like, he doesn't look like Tom Cruise normally, but when he's acting a bit disheveled and his hair's kind of crazy, I'm like, this is kind of what Tom Cruise looks like when he's like kind of crazy looking.
He kind of reminded me of Peter Gallagher a little bit.
Oh, okay.
I think mostly the big like thick eyebrows.
But he's like, hey, dude, when I said could do a bit of catering for this, I meant like some donuts, maybe, and like like a pot of coffee, not this like feast that you've put out. But yeah, it was a bit weird because it felt like he already had a job. I think maybe he was interning at a restaurant while he was working at this paper company.
Yeah, I guess.
But the paper company has the office where I think a lot of the people were working, but obviously there's the other friend who works in the warehouse side of it, the actual paper production side of the company. And he has like a weird interaction with so he's like actually the supervisor there now, and a lot of the people who work there aren't happy that this young kid who's went to college is now their supervisor because they're all older. And this one guy named Roy is like giving him like a lot of shit and refusing to, he's like, why'd you get a day off to go to this retreat and leave us all here? We were a man down because of that. And I'm like, this is your boss. You wouldn't complain, like you'd grumble about it, you'd make fun of him and complain when he's not around, but you'd like like this is surreal what's happening here. Yeah. I mean, maybe he's just racist because he's black, but sure. I'm saying Roy's racist to the character because the other character's black, but I don't like even still, like he can fire you. There's like one throwaway line he has where why he doesn't do that, because like when he's when the main guy comes to get him, he's like, why don't you just like get rid of him? He's like, because then they'd all like rise up against me. I'd have a whole warehouse full of Roys. But I'm like, or you make an example out of them that this bullshit's not tolerated, and if they want to keep their goddamn job, they'll respect their boss.
Yeah. To be fair though, I wouldn't talk like that to my boss or supervisor, but I probably would feel similar if like some young punk kid came in and like,
oh sure,
all of a sudden was telling me what to do.
But it's not even like it's his choice to go in this retreat. This is something from corporate that's making him go in this, so it's not even his shitty decision that's doing it. So
yeah, there's probably a lot more like realistic things that he could have been mad about. Like that thing just seems like just a bullshit thing that like managers would always do. Like you wouldn't really care.
Yeah, I don't know. It was all really absurd. And then of course, was it Molly, the girlfriend, shows up. Oh, and then immediately he's like, "Oh, we're breaking up, by the way," and he's like heartbroken.
Yeah. Just going back to that guy though, I just remembered like he did have like some funny line or something where he's talking about like, yeah, like you cut my hours in half. That means you cut my pay in half. Like, and that means like I don't have as much money for like my ex-wife and my kids and my bookie. And it's like he's just like naming like all this crap about like how horrible his life is, but it's like it's not as funny that like he put his like bookie or whatever right up there with his like.
You could stop gambling, like
yeah, like I mean that's a little bit on you.
Yeah, I think he says, my kid's not halving how much money he needs. My bookie's not halving like what he needs. Like, yeah, all right. Anyway, so yeah, we're interested in the characters. Todd Packard shows up. because that's just what I remember. David Koechner is the actor's name.
Yeah.
He is like the stern boss. He's not even that funny. Like, he's got a couple of slight jokes later on when he's talking to the law enforcement guy, but that's about it. He's otherwise quite the stern dude.
Yeah, but he is just like and like a lot of people probably remember him from The Office, but he's just one of those people that's in like a million different things and almost always comedy. So it's really hard for me to like not look at him in some type of like comedic context. Like, even if he's trying to say stuff that's like not really funny, like, I don't know, it still has like maybe like a slight comedic vibe.
They should have just got the rights to say the company was Dunder Mifflin, because I totally buy that Michael Scott was the one who arranged this trip, because this is the sort of bullshit he'd wanted.
Yeah.
I totally buy it.
Was the main character, wasn't he even in The Office in like maybe like an episode or two?
He might have been. I know he played Harvey Dent on Gotham, if that's...
Oh wait, Pete, you gotta use the correct title. Gotham, the city that Batman lives in.
Is this a reference to Pennyworth, the origin of Batman's butler?
Exactly. Yeah.
And then the other character we meet is Olivia. She's the sexy one. And I'm saying it that way because her introduction is she arrives in a van with some rock guy, and she comes out with like rock clothes on. Yeah, and he's not even in the rest of the movie. He's not like this is what's so weird about this to me, is it's not like she's the rock goth chick for the rest of the movie.
No,
this is purely just for this scene, and then for the rest of the film, she's wearing like very professional clothes. You never see her reference anything.
She's like the nerdy character. She has glasses.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even say she acts now. She's a blank slate for the rest of the movie, but for some reason, just this one scene, she's the sexy one, because she comes out, she's clearly spent the night with this guy, and when like the prissy girl who's dating Eyebrows, if that's what we're calling him, when she's
the
like,
gymnast.
Hey, the gymnast, yeah, she's like, Hey Olivia, like, nice of you to show up on time. Maybe you want to do something about that back fat. And then Olivia takes off her top and is standing there outside in front of everyone she works with in her bra, and she goes, it's called tits. And then walks off to get changed. And I'm like, this entire interaction is like, why are they acting like super bratty, like 14-year-olds for a start, right? With these like insults. And it just, everything about it feels like, okay, we're a trashy horror movie, we have to establish that. And that's fine, but it's weird to me that for the rest of the movie, this character is like this introduction is irrelevant to them. Like, it's so weird. But whatever. Yeah,
it's kind of hard to like I don't know. They just don't really do a great job of like introducing the characters. Like, I don't know. I had like a hard time like understanding the relationships. I'm like, all right, are these all friends or are they all just coworkers? And like, why does it seem like there's this one kind of group that's all about the same age, and then like just a few like random like well, it seems like mostly everyone else is like kind of old. Like I don't know, it's strange.
It's very odd. So we mentioned the gymnast. She's dating Eyebrows, and she is, I
guess, this retreat. So like her and Molly and stuff, they don't actually work there. They're just going because they're couples, I guess.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe you're. Yeah, but why would Molly be coming then?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
I think she does work there, because she's there later on in the office.
So everyone just works at this place.
Yeah, that's maybe how they met each other. I don't know. But Eyebrows and Sam, who's the main character, I have to give my name. They're friends, even though Eyebrows is a supervisor. Sam's also friends with the warehouse worker. Where's he on this cast list, just so I can give him some sort of title? I can't see him. Where is he? Oh, there's Nathan. He's Nathan. All right. So Nathan works in the warehouse. He's like a supervisor in there. Don't ask me to give you the job titles of the rest of them, because I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I have no idea.
They're in the business like management side of it. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe sales. Maybe they do sales. Maybe this is like the Jim and Pam of the Final Destination universe we got going. So,
and I don't know if you mentioned Isaac the perverted. one.
Not yet. No, he shows up, and his gimmick is that he tries to flirt with anyone he talks to. And I think his introduction, he's on the phone, but he's trying to chat up this other woman that he works with, and says, "Oh, let's sit together. You can tell me anything. I'm a good listener." And then when she goes to talk, she goes, "Shh, wait a minute, don't say anything," and because he's on the phone. So they're going for jokey, womanizer type kit, which we've already had this archetype. This was Failure Station 3 had the guy who had the necklace that he licked and stuff, and he was super pervy.
I forget what his name was, but it was something really stupid, wannabe rapper name or something.
Yeah. This guy's also casually racist as well later, so he's got that going for him.
Yeah.
We'll get to
can't
that.
really say I was too disappointed when he died.
No.
I will say there is one I actually thought legitimately funny joke where they're having a memorial service after the incident, and the Todd Packer, the main boss guy, is talking about all the people that they've lost, and he's like, and who can forget Isaac, and then they just cut to him in the crowd, and he's like, wait, does he think I'm dead? That was a legitimately funny joke.
No, that was a good joke, and then I think it's Nathan says, "I hear dead people."
yeah.
Yeah, that was amusing enough. Yeah. So lo and behold, this ragtag group of characters get on the bus, and it doesn't do any of that weird ominous stuff. And it's not until the character cuts his finger, and that's kind of the start of the chain of events of him having the vision, and they're already on the bridge. There's some maintenance working on, and part of the bridge was a hole cut out and stuff. I mean, the way this bridge just falls apart is very sudden, and just it's just happening, I guess. I think when the movie was coming out and I hadn't seen it yet, I assumed there was going to be maybe, I don't know, a hurricane or a tornado or a wave or something, a tidal wave or something, something that was going to affect the bridge that was going to cause it. Maybe it was Magneto. We can't say for sure it wasn't.
I don't know.
We don't know. So, but yeah, sure enough, he freaks out. They all start running off the bus, and we get a series of deaths, some of which are better than others. I will say it's funny as some of the ones the perv guy, he dies by he's still in the bus and the bus falls off and he's up against the window. It's a funny enough death, but I will say seeing them just either go in the water or a car land on them in water isn't as fun because there's no blood or splat.
Yeah.
So, Yeah,
it's kind of strange because it is very scary to have this big giant bridge collapse, but at the same time, it's one of those things where it's all right, well, how varied are the deaths going to be? They're mostly just going to, end up coming to just falling.
Oh, but, they get pretty varied actually in this opening section.
Well, yeah, I mean that's what I was saying. Before, when you're just kind of just thinking of it, oh, what's going to happen? But yeah, I mean they end up doing enough kind of surprising stuff.
Yeah, because eventually when Eyebrows, well, first of all, he gets a bunch of metal rods through him that sort of fall off where the construction was happening. But then he falls down, and his fall's quite good because he actually hits the edge of the base of one of the supports. So you get this satisfying splat as he then bounces off and goes into the water. I really like that death. The other one that's really good is I think it's the cement being mixed for the construction.
That was cool. Yeah,
it just sort of spills onto Todd Packard, and he just melt, and it looks not bad honestly. I thought it was a decent effect. Someone else gets cut in half. I think it's the main guy gets Sam, or they gets cut in half at the end. That's how he dies. But yeah, I think it's the gymnast who falls in, and then a car lands on her. Because she falls in, and I went, wait, she just fall in the water? She may survive that. And then she did. She popped up and was, oh, she is all right. So what's happening now? And then the car just falls on her. So it is quite comical, but it's not as satisfying in a horror movie sense, that death.
Yeah.
But some of the other ones are really good though. So I would say this stacks up all right as far as variety goes.
Yeah, it's not bad.
It's better than 3, better than 1 obviously, because 1 didn't really have the big set piece.
Yeah.
We could debate about this versus 4, I guess.
I think 4 is definitely very cheesy, but I still like that opening. But I mean, this is up there too. I wouldn't say it's too far off. I'd probably put 4 above, but not by a ton.
Obviously, 2 is number 1. That's just the.
Yes,
I did love earlier in the scene they drive past a log truck, and I did sort of go, oh, that's a nice little tease, like, oh, maybe a log truck will come back into play, but it never did. But it was there.
That would have been kind of funny if he just get like maybe just if the log truck is going down, you just get like one person done in by the logs.
Yeah, just a nice little callback. It'd be funny if like all these elaborate death things, the final thing that killed everyone was something that had killed someone previously, but you didn't really see it coming until the last moment. That could be a fun trip down memory lane. But obviously it flashes back and he, gets off the bus, and effectively all that really happens, because they're already on the bridge, is that just because they start running like 30 seconds earlier, they're able to get to safety before everything completely goes to shit. And from there we have the big memorial service, where we see Tony Todd's back in this one, and actually has the most scenes he's had, I think, in any of these movies in this one.
And I just want to say one thing that I did kind of think was funny, and honestly, like, I feel like kind of true to like corporate life, is that Todd Packer, who's like the manager or whatever guy, he seems concerned, but not because of like actual concern for the person, but because of like, oh, could this be a liability for the company? So like when he starts freaking out, he's kind of like follow him, make sure like this he doesn't do anything that could hurt us or whatever.
So yeah, the funeral scene's funny enough, bizarrely, because it has a good joke. Tony Todd says something ominous about death will always wins in the end. So that's kind of returns to just Tony Todd. He's basically at a couple of the crime scenes later, and they notice him being there, and they're like, what are you doing here? And he's like, my job. And he turns around and it says coroner in the back of his jacket. It's like, well, yeah. He's always there because he's always there for the dead bodies, you idiots.
I thought it was funny. Like, I think he says something like, "Are you like you're following us?" And it's like, no, he's literally the coroner. Like, what do you want?
It's not my fault you keep dying. But yeah, he gives them obviously the exposition they need later on to know what's going on to an extent, but that doesn't count for quite a bit. We get a few deaths before anyone even knows there's like a pattern or anyone's been hunted down or anything like that. Everyone's just kind of upset. Molly and Sam kind of rekindle, and the only plot here really is that he was offered this big internship at a restaurant in Paris, which is a big deal, and she thought he should take it, and that's why she broke up with him. But over the course of the movie, they're going to they kind of are back together again, and now she seems like she'll probably go with him if he goes. That's it. That's the romance. There's not really much more to it than that, which is fine, I guess. But I never really cared about either of them, and
no.
they always
feel like you get that revelation of like, oh, he's a chef and he has like this opportunity for an internship, and it's just like, I could not care at all. Like, I don't need this. Like, yeah,
there's a scene in his restaurant where someone sends back a dish, and he's like, oh, the guy said this was too flat and had no flavor, so he's getting the check. And the waiter or whoever it is like sort of gives him this look like, oh, you effed up, dude. And the head chef comes over and tastes it and goes, no, that customer's an asshole. Your dish is fine, kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm not sure what the point of this scene was, other than just to say that he's good at this.
Yeah, you couldn't care less.
He's a nice guy in a mean world.
He's nice and he cooks, and sometimes he gets premonitions about giant disasters.
Sometimes, yes.
Yeah.
So the first death is the gymnast, I think.
Gymnast.
Yeah. Which I think is a great death. I think this is this was when I saw this in theaters, and I was like, I remember being a little disappointed by 4, so I went into 5 with kind of tepid expectations. I kind of like, this was the scene that was like, oh, I think I'm out of this. I think this movie's going to be okay, because it's it's teasing a bunch of things, and it's really effective because she's up on the bar or the beam or whatever, and like a screw has come off like the ceiling fan, and so she's on her bare feet and doing all the fancy gymnast moves, and a lot of it's like, she's flipping and landing on her feet with all her weight and stuff, and this little screw's like on the beam at any point, like she might land on it, and it's actually quite tense, like watching her feet almost land on it and be like, ooh. But of course, that's not actually what gets her, right? This is like this is all a big tease. It does happen, but not to her, because she then goes over to the what do you call it? Like the bouncy pole that she swings, that does and loops around on.
Yeah. I don't know gymnast terms, so
yeah,
I can't help you.
Apparently neither do I. But yeah, the one that sort of bends and she, the spin on it and stuff.
Yeah.
So she goes over to do that, and she's doing her spinning, and it's like teasing that the screw's coming unloose at the end of this, and I'm like, that feels very dangerous, because if someone would really hurt themselves if that was going to come off.
Yeah.
But there's another woman now using the other beam that she was on, and she does a big move that lands on it, and obviously it doesn't kill her, but she reacts in pain, and she backs off, and basically blows the powder, the chalk that they use in their hands, the big container of that, and that blows into like a fan, which goes all into the gymnast, who's spinning around in these like circles, and that basically sends her flying off when she's spinning up, and then she lands like on her like neck, and kind of a like her head's like forward and her neck's broken, and her legs are kind of like going backwards over her back, like they're sort of going over the wrong way. It's just a really fun kind of splat. It's a very satisfying splat and crunch.
Yeah. I'm curious if like this would be at all like possible in real life. Like I wouldn't be surprised that you could like land on your neck, and
die.
Like, yeah, that wouldn't be surprising.
That part's absolutely possible. I don't know if this is precise like landing is.
Because her like leg bones are like sticking out of her skin. Like I was like, can you really like? Because she's not like high up or anything. Like she just does like kind of like a little flip that gets mishandled, and like I'm like, okay, could you land with enough force to like make your bones pop out? Like maybe if it's just a very specific spot, but I don't know. But I mean, not that I'm complaining, because yeah, it is a very funny, satisfying death. I
think that's what's part of what made me realize, okay, this has got a sense of humor, this movie. I mean, some of the deaths early on gave me that as well, but and the big thing at the start, but this for me, it was like, okay, this was kind of cartoony, just how much velocity she got like coming off this pole, and the way she landed. I was like, okay, I'm into this. And obviously Eyebrows is like in the crowd watching her rehearse, so he cries out in pain and is really upset about it. So
this was his Joker moment.
This is how he gets depressed, and that leads to his plot later in the movie, where he becomes the villain of the film. That's right, there's a villain in this Final Destination movie, which they kind of toyed with 3, but they sort of like didn't do anything with it, because it just kind of gets stopped immediately when the guys try to do anything. Second death is our boy Isaac, the pervy one, because he decides to like go around all the desks of the people who have died at work and see if there's anything in their drawers that he wants to steal, and he gets a couple of things, and then ultimately gets like a voucher for like a massage parlor. Yeah. And he's like, oh, I don't mind if I do. So we get him going to this
I have a question about this guy.
Sure.
So he's obviously a creep and very pervy and very annoying, but it seems like he's always like talking to like some woman on the phone or something. So are we to believe that he does actually like get women? Because it seems like there'd be no way in hell like any woman would ever want to be near this guy.
I wouldn't want to see how much like self-esteem they don't have,
Yeah.
That'd be my because the whole thing, because he's talking to someone that he's trying to like set up a date with, until he sees the woman who's at the desk at the front of the massage parlor, and he's like, oh, he likes a bit of her. So he then quickly like blows her off on the phone, and then says he was talking to his sister so he can start flirting with her. And when I say flirting, what I really mean is acting like a creep, because he sort of leans in and goes, I would like to know if this massage will have a, licks his lips a bit, happy ending. Like, so
extremely blatant.
Yes. And this woman is like having none of his shit, and is just kind of like sort of doesn't like get rid of him, but takes him through, and it's clear that she's going to like set him up for something. So he keeps dropping these innuendos, and then she leaves, And then he starts getting a massage with his eyes shut, and then he opens them, and it's like a 70-year-old woman who's doing it, and he's upset about that. But the joke is also that she's like manhandling him and like cracking bones and stuff, and he's in pain. But he admits later that he's actually feeling better as a result. So,
which I like that they did that, because I don't know, I feel like a lot of times you see this joke of like, someone's like trying to get a massage, but it's like, oh, it's so painful, they're like, doing all this and that, and it's like, no, like, I've had a couple of massages in my life, and like they feel really good. Like people don't like go out to hurt you. Like if they are doing that kind of stuff, it's to like loosen something or crack something, and like you actually do feel good afterwards. So I like that it wasn't just like being comically like, oh no, like he was like, oh yeah, it actually does feel better.
Yeah. Were these massages ending in any kind of happy fashion, Timmy?
No, of course not. Jesus.
That's what you were supposed to say. Well, I asked him to, but he wasn't for it. I was. I mean, obviously, there's like a bit of casual racism here, because he says,
"Oh yeah."
What he says? He says there's nothing wrong with that. I think he says. I can't remember what the setup was.
It was something like I think like he's when she's like taking out the acupuncture needles, and at first he's like, no, and then he's like, yeah, you know what, like whatever, 1 billion people can't be Wong or something.
That's what it was. Yeah, that's what it was. And I do like that the old woman's like, what did you say, you little shit, and starts stabbing him with the needles, like so I appreciate, because I was a little bit worried that it was going to be like a dodgier joke, because when you see the arms giving them the massage, I thought it was going to be like, oh, like, is this going to be a man and he's going to get all homophobic, or
that's what I thought it was going to be too. Yeah.
So I appreciated that it kind of dodged that. But obviously it's set up that you don't like him, he's a prick, so we're going to enjoy the demise that he's going to have. I'm glad like it didn't go like
too far into like, he wasn't saying anything that was like the stuff he was saying was cringy, but it wasn't like like something like extremely like mean spirited. It was just more like, oh well, this is like a very stupid man who's making stupid jokes or whatever.
Oh, yeah, he just comes across as
comeuppance.
Yeah, he comes across as pathetic and a loser, not someone who's there to actually harass them necessarily.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the way he flirts it is kind of harassment, I suppose. But
yeah, that's true.
But anyway, so she decides to leave him. This is a running theme. This happens twice in this movie, where someone's at a facility, in this case a massage, later it's eye surgery. We'll get to that later. Right?
That's right. I didn't really put this together, but yeah, you're right. And honestly, it's kind of a mainstay for the franchise.
Yeah. And the person says, wait here. Now, to be fair, at least with this one, it's like an intentional thing. They're supposed to like let you sit with the needles in for some time. It's much more egregious later when the laser for the eye surgery is set up and the guy's like, oh, I need to go check something, you just sit tight. Like, what? But no, at least here you're supposed to sort of like sit with them in for a bit, so it makes sense that they would leave you to just like have a nap or whatever. But yeah, she leaves him on his own, and this poor like massage parlor's probably gets sued out the ass for this, because like his phone starts going, and then like a fire starts, and he's like desperate to try and get up, and this is a gnarly moment that I've not seen in another movie, so I appreciate this.
I actually thought this part was really cool,
where he falls over onto his front, and obviously that's on all the needles that are in him for the acupuncture. And he's sort of like still for a bit, and I thought, I don't think that would kill you. Obviously it hurt. But and sure enough, he wakes up. He's just and it looks really, it looks bad. Like Connor would hate this scene because he hates needles. So seeing all these like needles that are bent and kind of bit sticking in them, and like there's blood dripping from them, it looks quite rough. And he's got them on his face as well, and there's right, and he's trying to get to, because the fire's spread, and he has to like jump up to this ledge, and he's like finally out of danger. He feels like after everything, and it was his own phone vibrating that caused the.
It was vibrating and like knocked a candle over.
Which, by the way, the phone's kind of a hint of when it's set, by the way, because obviously it's a secret. But the phone, because it's not a smartphone. This is 2011. This came out.
That's true. Yeah, I don't think I thought of that right away. But yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, I actually did guess the ending because he kept talking about going to Paris, and I actually went, wait a minute, that's where they were going in the first movie. So I did predict it the first time I watched it, but it was the sort of thing. I had the idea, and then I started looking for signs that it wasn't set present day, and sure enough, I didn't find any.
Yeah, so I didn't predict it. I get until a little bit at the end once you're kind of starting to know, but once they were talking about going to Paris and stuff, I didn't put it together that it's going to be connected to the first movie, but in my head I was going geez, what's with this franchise and people going to France? It's strange that that's a thing.
At least there was a reason for it. It's good. But yeah, so he eventually he is killed by a Buddha statue that he kind of mocked when he came in, and apparently this wooden because it looked wooden to me, but apparently it's heavy enough to crush his head like an anvil falling on someone's head from 50 feet up or something like that. He splats like a pumpkin. I mean, I'm glad he did because it was funny, but much like the velocity of the gymnast coming off the pole, this was absurdly comical. How I buy that it might kill you because of blunt force trauma, but I do not believe it would completely shatter your skull into a million pieces. Yeah,
it would probably maybe give you a dent or pierce your eye or something like that. But it wouldn't completely obliterate it. But I mean, that's it. You gotta be glad that they do.
Yeah, if you said that it wouldn't even kill you, it would just give you a concussion, I'd believe that. I mean, I don't know how heavy this thing is. It just depends how much weight's on it. But it's just a shelf that's up the wall a bit. It's not that high up, relatively speaking. So this is just comical, cartoony, and I love it. Full splat. And the other characters find out and come, and this is where they meet Tony Todd again, and he's like, yeah, that's got a design, and I've seen it before. People walk away from an accident, and one by one they die. And then he introduces a new rule, which kind of contradicts some of the previous movies. He basically implies that if someone who's on the list kills someone else, that's basically offering their soul up instead. But the problem is, the previous movies established that if you're not next on the list, you can't die.
Yeah. I'm sorry, what's that?
I mean, is it like a caveat where if the person who's next on the list kills someone, it'll work because they're offering someone in their place?
I wonder if I was gonna say I don't know if there's slightly different rules for every disaster that or scenario that people avert or escape or whatever. I don't know. It's kind of weird because it seems like every, or at least almost every movie tries to introduce some kind of wrinkle, which is which I think is fair that you're trying to add stuff and keep it up, but I don't know. It always feels kind of haphazard. I don't know. Would you prefer that they kind of just have a very easy, clear set of rules that they follow each movie, or I don't know, do you like them adding or mixing something up with each one?
I don't mind adding things, but it's when they add something and then the following movies just never acknowledge it or contradict it that it starts to become a problem, because it's not, nothing starts to line up with anymore anytime. Because I don't necessarily hate this idea because it does set up some interesting stuff for later in the film, but it does contradict one of the cool mechanics that was introduced in Final Destination 2 and did stick around for 3. But this whole idea that you can't die if you're not next was an interesting concept. So it was a bit of a shame for it to do that. So at this point, the character kind of remembers the order people died in and sort of figured out there's a bit of a pattern. And they're debating all this, and what the laser surgery must be next. It has to be. So Olivia goes for laser eye surgery, and the reason for this is that during the this is funny actually, because she won't know this because she didn't experience this because it was in the vision.
Sorry, what didn't she experience?
Because in the vision, when the bridge collapsed and they all died, she died because she dropped her glasses and couldn't see. Right. Yeah. So she says when she's going for eye surgery here, I'm I need to, I don't want to miss anything. I want to be able to see properly. It almost implies the motivation is because that's what happened to her earlier, but she never experienced that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. Can I also say it's weird that when she goes for her eye surgery, she takes her glasses off and throws them in this donation bin before she goes in for the surgery? I'm like, wouldn't you wait and see if it works first before you just throw away your expensive glasses?
Yeah.
That's a bit weird. Yeah. She throws them in like she's taking off like 3D glasses at the movie theater to just toss them in. It's like, what the hell are you doing? The doctor's like, you won't be needing those anymore. Like, maybe wait and see if it's successful first before you know,
yeah,
like toss them away, but whatever. Also, donating glasses is kind of weird because like they're prescription, and you know,
yeah,
like what do the super poor people do? Do they just keep trying on different pairs until one kind of seems right?
I guess.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Very odd. Anyway, so you're thinking, oh, this is an interesting place for a failed destination death, because it's like, okay, we've got her strapped to a chair and there's a laser that's going to be fired into her eye. And yeah, so this is the one that really made me think of the lawsuit thing, because like this guy left her alone with this machine like turned on. Like,
oh, absolutely, yeah.
And what, like, in what way is this not his fault?
Yeah. No, 100%.
Right, that's absolutely. What happened at the massage parlor was a freak accident. You know, candles are acceptable risk that people, you know, deal with. This is like, it is a freak accident because we see like things turning up by themselves and stuff. But like, there's no way this doctor is not getting sued. Right, for everything he's worth. Right, this woman's family are coming after him, and they will get every penny. This is absurd. But yeah, the laser turns on, and actually you see it burning like through like part of her eye. Like it sort of draws like a little shape in her eye. It's really nasty. And then if that's not enough, she ends up like, you know, running and screaming and very comically like throwing herself out the window to her death.
Yeah, like that's another thing too. Like, I don't think it's like super easy to just like jump out like a full glass window. Like, well, it's not even like she like jumps out. She kind of like falls forward. Like, I don't know.
It's movie logic, all right. That's all I can say. Or it's
I mean, it's like, I'm not like complaining because it's like, it still makes it entertaining, but it's just funny to think about. Like, yeah, this probably wouldn't happen. And I don't know anything about like laser eye surgery, but like, are the lasers like Bond villain lasers that can like cut through anything?
Yeah, because it starts cutting through stuff, and you're like
she holds up her hands and it like, you know, it like goes through it like sizzling, and you know.
Yeah, which is pretty rough. Well, I think the implication is it's turned up higher than it's meant to be. You know, it's not meant to be this intense. It's meant to be, which does beg the question of why is that setting exist? Why isn't there just a safety thing that stops it from ever going higher than it ever needs to be?
Yeah. Who's the person with like just the worst eyes imaginable that they need like the nuclear option?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a reason for this, but like I've always said this about cars, like why can certain cars even go like so far above like the highest speed limit? Like why isn't there just like a limiter to stop? You know, if the highest limit is like 70 on like a motorway or something, or 80, whatever it is, then why isn't that just the cap where you can never go beyond it?
I mean, I can't speak for other countries, but for America, it just seems to make sense because people are idiots and like to be able to buy things that can easily kill them.
Sure, yeah. I mean, maybe it's not easy to like limit on a car. Maybe it's hard to like put a block on it. But I've thought about this in the past. Like, why not just have it be impossible to go above whatever the highest speed limit is?
Oh,
but
that's
whatever.
a good point.
I mean, I get why race cars wouldn't, because that's the whole point. Is they're on a track and they're going silly speeds, but
silly speeds.
Yeah, some cars go like, you know, 100 something. Do some cars go 200 miles per hour? I think they might. Maybe not in a race, but certainly.
Sounds silly.
I just mean silly as to mean extreme speeds, okay?
Sure.
That's all. That's all it means. Anyway, so
should we like play like one of those like really realistic racing games? They're just like
a simulator, like Gran Turismo, and
they're just like so boring. It's like if I play a racing game, like I want to go like 500 miles an hour and like just fly through the air and like crash into things and like, you know what I mean? Like I hate when it's like, oh, here's a game and like you can choose like your own like a speedometer or like all these like little car stuff.
Yeah, people who actually love cars, who want to build their own car and tweak it and stuff. No, like, I mean, the best racing games of all time are Burnout 3 and Burnout Revenge and Split Second, because I want to be rewarded for crashing the other players. That's what I want.
Yeah.
I want a crash mode. I want destruction. That's what I want in a racing game. Thank you very much.
Sure.
So, yeah. So anyway, Olivia is dead.
I just remembered that they made a Need for Speed movie.
starring Jesse Pinkman of Breaking Bad. Yeah. So that is her dead. Somewhere around here, the boss gets killed. He has a couple of moments where he gets like paranoid about the other characters, particularly the Eyebrows, who's getting more depressed, and is like, should we have codenames, Agent so and so, for me to call you? But someone asks who's next, and then he gets the quick death in the factory where there's just like a wrench or something that comes flying at his head, and
that was kind of funny though. Like, well, obviously he was next. Like,
yeah,
I think this was right after Nathan kind of kills a guy. I don't think he really killed him, but like they really press him, and he's like,
not intentionally. Yeah, so basically he kind of like, he's next on the list, but because he kind of tries to like move Roy, he kind of inadvertently gets Hoy like hooked on like a big metal hook. My favorite part about that is it wasn't an amazing death, but I did like at the end when he's like hanging from the hook, there's a moment where he just kind of slides down an extra little inch, and it just like and the tip of the hook kind of comes poking out of his like face, and I was like, okay, that was like a fun little beat. Because the Todd Packard death was okay, but the part I liked about it the most was that when they cut to his body lying there at the end of the scene, and you just see like this like wrench like in his face, like just like right into it. I was like, okay, that made it, because sometimes it's like the body afterwards is the funny part, sometimes it's the suspense before it's the good part, and sometimes it's the kill itself. This was one where it was the aftermath that was funny.
But yeah, so this like kind of annoyed me, because you have the eyebrows guys like, wait a minute, so like you killed him, you took a life, like, so like you get to live now, right? Like, just did you do it? Like, say you did it, you killed him. And he's like just really pressing him. He's like, fine, yeah, I did it, I killed him. But it's like, no, like anyone could see that was clearly like an accident. Like, I don't know what the rules are, if it's like like I don't know if it's specifically like you can just kill anybody, or if it specifically has to be like, no, like the death that death has out for you, if you can like get someone to take that death, then the swap works. Because like I don't know if just like if you just take a gun and shoot like a random person, like I was like, oh, does that count, or does it have to be the specific death that you are owed to death or whatever? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't. But it's there's some inconsistency with this later on as well. But this scene is meant to prove that the theory is right, that he is safe now because he's killed someone else instead, even if it was inadvertent.
For now.
Yeah, we'll get to it. So Nathan's freaking out. He's not very happy. And I wish there was more of the movie, because when he comes to like see the main couple, and they're at like the restaurant alone, and like she's there to see Sam, and he makes her a dessert, just for her, because he's a chef obviously, and he comes out and they're having this heart to heart, and Nathan shows up looking like he's been wandering the streets like drunk all night, and he says that he was looking for someone to kill him. We see like a quick like montage of him like almost pushing someone into a car.
That wasn't Nathan, that was the eyebrows guy.
Oh sorry, the eyebrows guy, not Nathan.
Peter,
sorry.
Isn't it?
Yeah, because Nathan doesn't actually show up again until the very, very end after that scene.
Yeah,
where he like inadvertently kills the other guy. Nathan is just off to the point where I was like, did he just survive? Is he okay? And then you get that one last scene at the end, which we'll talk about.
Honestly, he feels like barely like much of a character at all. Like, I feel like we almost never see him like hanging out with the friends or anything.
But Eyebrows shows up, and he's like basically saying, yeah, he was looking for someone to kill, and he almost did it a couple times. The idea being that it'll skip over him, because I guess I appreciated that it wasn't about skipping over to the next one in line anymore. It was about, no, if you actually kill someone, that might mean you're okay because you've given another death instead. I was like, okay, that's at least new, even though it contradicts a few little rules. It's at least new, and it means maybe this will actually work. Because the problem I had with the last couple of movies is that they seem to think once it skipped over them, they were safe, And like, no, we already saw it wasn't in like 2 movies, 3 movies. Like we know that's not going to work. So at least for the audience, it's like, oh, maybe this one will work because it's new and we haven't seen it before. So he pulls out a gun. He's talking kind of crazy, and he basically comes after the main couple. And this is our big finale. This is, it didn't really feel like we escalated to this point. It was just like, all of a sudden, there's only 15 minutes left, and this is going to be your big, goodbye thing. So we get like them, fighting each other in the kitchen, and he drops the gun in the stove, and like that's heating up. There's
and just to kind of point it out, he seems to really have it out for Molly, specifically because I guess since she didn't die in the vision, and this was the one thing that kind of annoyed me, where it's just like, seriously, dude, like this is what you're getting mad at. Like he seems pissed, like that, in the vision, the main guy has that he didn't save his girlfriend, he only saved Molly or whatever. But it's like, it's not like he had an A or B choice. It's like he was just trying to like protect his girlfriend, and the other one didn't make it. It's just one of those things where it's like, I mean, I know he's going through a lot of shit, but it's just like you're being so irrational that like it's very annoying. This
character arc is basically non-existent. He just looks kind of angry in a couple of scenes, and then all of a sudden he's like, oh, I'm looking for someone to kill. And I do like a little bit of the rules here is that it makes sense that it has to be her. I mean, it doesn't have to be her in general, but between her and Sam, it has to be her, because killing Sam, what's that going to do? He's next on the list anyway, so it's not really offering up a death per se. Admittedly, this is all moot because death comes after them anyway. But going by the rules at this point, it makes sense that it has to be someone who wasn't on the list already to die. So he's coming after her, and Sam wants to protect her. So when he falls at one point, like a knife comes off the table and lands next to his head, and it's again, he's not next on the list, so like it can't be him. What I thought was weird about this scene is that when someone kills someone here, meaning they're safe now, like it happens twice where the lights kind of like flicker to sort of let them know something had just happened. Like, and the second time it happens, they actually say, "Oh, that's it, Sam. You're safe now because you had to kill Nathan." Yeah, because the cop guy shows up and he gets shot, which deals with that, and then Sam kills Nathan when he's trying to because that's the other thing is that he kills the cop, and then Sam's like, okay, look, obviously this was disturbed and we're not happy about it, but you just killed someone, so therefore it's done now. And then immediately Eyebrows goes, no, you just witnessed the murder of a federal agent, so now I have to kill the witnesses. Death's getting a few more on the belt. So he goes Eyebrows goes super evil. I'm pretty sure I said Nathan somewhere in that sentence again. I don't know why. I think it's because we never learned this guy's name, so Nathan's just kind of filling in for both.
His name's Peter, right? I think it's Peter.
I think it is Peter, which is ironic that I'm not saying his name. Yes, I know. But I like
you could never picture yourself as this kind of guy.
Yeah, that's this ugly, vile man. Yeah, so I'm much more sexually attractive. I agree. What's that smell? There's a smirk in your face right now, Tim. I don't think I appreciate the suggestion.
I was just thinking about a joke I heard a couple months ago.
That one joke you heard in the last 2 months.
That's funny.
Yeah,
I believe I heard on a late night program.
So they think they've won. They're like, oh, but it's done because Eyebrows killed the cop.
Before we get into like the kind of big twist ending or whatever, I gotta say I feel like pretty much every death up until here I thought was pretty fun, and I think it kind of sucks that like this last little chunk before we get into whatever the ending. Yeah,
the actual ending's fun, but like these movies have all had this problem where their kind of big final set pieces have always been the least interesting by and large. I'll give 4 some credit actually. 4 was a little bit different because 4 had all that comical stuff with him trying to stop all the power tools, and I was like, okay, this is actually kind of entertaining.
I think the thing that maybe makes us hurt a little bit more though is I think it's a really good and interesting idea that just kind of feels wasted because
the characters are shit.
But like and I think you even mentioned it in another review, like the idea of someone like it was a little different, like you were saying before, like someone that's like a serial killer, or someone that can commit murders because they know they're not going to die because they're not next or whatever. Like that's an interesting idea, and it's not exactly the same, but yeah, the idea of someone kind of going crazy and wanting to murder someone to save themselves, so you not only have death coming after you, but you actually have like a very literal like person coming after you as well. I think there's a lot of good ideas here, and it'd be cool to see like this kind of big showdown between these two characters while like death is also trying to get them, so like they're constantly avoiding things. Like that could be super fun set piece, but it doesn't really do much here. It's just it's not like, well, as I say, it's not horrible, but I don't know, it's not really great either. It's just kind of like
yeah, no, I mean, like the characters in the movie, this plot thread is very underdeveloped, which is a shame because, like you say, there's some fun ideas with like, it should have been a bigger part of the movie, and they did try to space up a little bit. Like the knife almost falling his head. I wish there was more near death things in it to make it feel more Final Destination-y while they're fighting. But it is the weakest part. But it's the same. Like, even 2 has this problem where there's the stuff at the hospital. Towards the end of 2 is by far the weakest section of that movie.
It's very surprising that the end scenes like almost always end up being the most forgettable. Yeah,
no, that's true. 4 might be the exception, just because you've got the big chaotic thing at the theater, and then I made fun of that movie for doing the vision thing again at the end, but maybe that was the benefit of it, is that they got to do another big set piece, and that made it more interesting. So
that's true.
Maybe I should give them some slack on that. I don't know. But so they think they're safe, and it cuts to them. They're on a plane and they're going to Paris, and then it happens.
He accepted the internship and everything, and
yes, he accepted it, and she's going to go with them. She's learning French. They're all excited, and as they're sitting in their plane seats and they're just they're finished putting their overhead bags away and stuff, he sits down, and there's a bit of a commotion, and he looks over, and they've like seamlessly, and I say seamlessly, they've got like the back of his head in the foreground, and then a shot from the first movie as some of the characters have been like dragged off the plane by security, and it's like, oh, this is the plane from the first movie. That's the twist ending. This is, and I think, Joe, I appreciate about this little twist, and why I think it's kind of fun, and why it doesn't feel cheap, is because it's basically the previous movies multiple times. The end of 3 did this, where they were on the train at the end, and it was like Death's way of just killing them all quickly at the end after they'd all thought they got away. And I didn't like that scene, right? I didn't like that scene at all. And then obviously, 4 has them all killed with the big car crash at the end and whatever. I think this was a really fun way of like doing this twist, because it was like, if this was just the end, and let's say it wasn't connected to the first movie, and it was just they got on a plane and then the plane has this thing, I would say that's just like a boring, like they're just doomed and they're going to die no matter what ending. It being the plane from the first movie, and finding out that plane was already one of Death's things to clean up some loose ends that then spiraled into the plot of the first movie, is actually a little bit inventive, and it's like the only scenario of doing this where, oh, this thing they're on, this plane, this boat, this train, whatever it is, the idea that the thing at the end they're on is doom, and it's a quick way to kill them at the end for the joke ending, I actually think works here, because it is like, oh, it's that plane. So, okay, that's kind of fun. I don't think it's like super smart. I don't want to give it too much credit. It's just some fun little idea that works well enough.
No, I agree. I feel like there's other movies that if they tried tying it into, another movie in a franchise, like, it'd be very eye-rolly. But I mean, since we're already dealing, with something that's pretty cheesy here, I think it fits the movie. So I did kind of like, once I started realizing what's happening, I was like, oh wow, like this is kind of funny they're going here.
Yeah, and I it's an interesting comparison as well, because this came out in 2011, the original came out in 2000. Is like they show a lot more of what happens to the plane. It's like an action sequence. You see the engine on fire, and like you see shots from the outside. Like it's like a proper sequence this time. And not I mean, it was impressive enough in the original because they did all that stuff inside the plane as it was happening, but it was all kind of from Alex's perspective. This was more like an action movie where you're going to see all the stuff happening and like all the explosions and stuff and blah blah blah.
I think it's like Molly like flies out of the plane and like hits the wing or the engine or something like. as she's like going.
Yeah, one of them definitely does. And then like the Sam, like you see him just burn alive in his chair.
Yeah.
It's like really like dark. And then just to confirm that this was a light-hearted movie, they give you a joke like final. Like this was very. This was actually probably the closest ending to Final Destination 2 in terms of like tone, because it was all about just like a quick like oh, this one person thing, because it cuts to Nathan, who we've not seen since we think he's safe because he got Roy killed. And the only thing I'll say about this scene that doesn't add up is that death getting after the other two in the plane means that rule was meaningless anyway, and it doesn't care.
Yes.
So
that was my one thing, is that like, okay, this is a fun enough ending, but if I'm gonna like take it very seriously, then I guess my first thing would be like, okay, but what about the rule? Like, they're safe because they did their thing, right? Like,
so the fact that it already went after the other couple meant that the reason for this joke to kind of work kind of isn't there. But whatever, just go with it, right? Just accept that he's at least he still thinks the rule's there. This character Nathan still thinks that he's safe because he got someone killed, and he's at a bar, and it's like the wake for Roy. Like they're celebrating his life, and he's looking at a photo of him, and this guy comes up and says, "I
don't know if I would have went if I was the guy that killed him."
Yeah, it's a fair point. And this guy is like, he wasn't the easiest guy to work with, and they're just kind of like talking about him. And he's like, hey, and it turns out, it didn't make that much of a difference anyway. And Nathan's like, oh, what do you mean? He's like, oh, when they did the autopsy, it turned out he had a blood vessel that was going to go any day. Like, he was going to die anyway. And like Nathan looks really like oh dear. And that's when, and we saw it kind of like come off the plane like before this scene started. It's like the wheel of the plane just comes crashing through the roof of the bar and splats him. And the final moment is like, I think it's like his arm, like there's like a chunk of his arm is just sitting there, and then it goes to the credits, and it's like, so
and then the credits shows like a bunch of different kills.
Yeah, the credits is basically a highlight reel of the first four, because it does this thing where it says Final Destination 5, and then it counts down 4, 3, 2, 1, and then it's a highlight reel of the previous movies. Although I noticed here that there was very little from 1 in this, because the kills in 1 weren't as big and extravagant, so there wasn't as much to show.
Yeah, but it's interesting seeing so many of the kills like back to back, and like, for better or worse, with these movies, like you kind of got to give them credit. Like the kills are pretty varied. Like when you see it, like even in like some of the more bad movies, like still just showing the kills, like wow, like at least they do a lot of different stuff. I
mean, that's the franchise. Like that's its gimmick, is like you get to make up whatever kill you want. So they have to be inventive and fun. Otherwise, what's the point? Like, So I'm curious to see what they do with the 6th one, and I'm curious to see like what wacky scenarios they get them into. And I do hope it is on the lighter hearted side, just so it's fun. Yeah. But we'll see.
The thing with the 6th one though is like we really have like. We know nothing about it, right? Like, do we even know who's like directing it, or?
I think we might know that. Let me
do your internet research.
There is an IMDb page. There is a poster.
Okay.
I don't know if it's an official poster though. It's in Spanish, I think, but it's like a 6 coming through a skull. So it looks in style with the others, but okay, we'll see. There's no director on IMDb listed or cast. Let's do a little bit of detective work here just before we wrap up. Final Destination 6.
Because like I don't know, I get very apprehensive about a movie existing like unless I see an actual trailer. So like I don't know, that I still feel up in the air about like, especially with everything that's going on with HBO Max. I'm like, I don't know, like, are we really gonna get this movie? Are we 100% sure?
Well, it's got a writer. So here we go. This is a bloody disgusting article. That says switching up the formula. So this might be actually interesting to see what it says. As we recently learned, the Final Destination franchise is being retooled with a brand new movie with John Watts from the Spider-Man movies and Cop Car on board as producer. Not directing. Okay. Producing.
Okay.
Watts is producing the 6th installment of the franchise with HBO Max. Laurie Evans Taylor, who wrote Wicked Games, and Guy Busick, who wrote Scream 5, are writing
Oh, okay.
So speaking with Dead Central via Fangoria, Fair Destination creator Jeffrey Reddick teases what we can expect, suggesting it'll change up. So here's the quote. I will say that it's not just going to be another kind of we set up a group of people, they cheat death, and then death just gets them. Okay, we're listening.
Why not? That's what we like about it, though.
And there's one wrinkle that we kind of added to every movie to kind of like change it up a bit. That says quote directly, by the way. I'm not saying kind of, multiple times. That's him. This one is a true Final Destination movie, but it doesn't follow the kind of formula. That's kind of again. Dude, like, speak with some variety. Yeah. So he's not actually saying what the change is. He's just saying that it changes the formula.
Yeah, I mean, the thing's kind of weird about that is, like, I don't know. I feel like this is one where, I mean, I really wouldn't mind if they just stick with the formula. Like, if you give me, like, entertaining characters and crazy deaths, like, that's all I really need.
Yeah, it's been over a decade, so I wouldn't mind them just sticking to the formula. I would just say give us some better characters, make them fun, keep it lighthearted, and have good deaths. That's all I really need from it. But yeah, so that's an article that was from early July this year.
Well, it's not too far away. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if we've got any kind of... It was definitely meant to be 2022 at one point. I mean, whether it makes that, window, we'll find out, I guess.
Yeah.
Let me type in release date next to it, see what we get. The film is set to be released in 2022, so that's the official word right now. So
okay,
we're still in this limbo of they might just announce it like a month before with the cast and director, because it's a streaming movie and they can do that.
It's so hard to tell with like streaming movies now, because it feels like they're like most movies usually will get more stuff leading up to it and more like promos and everything, and then like streaming stuff, sometimes it's, especially like with Netflix shit, my god, like you'll get like something like a week before and then it's just dumped on there and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and they announced who the writers were in October 2021. Okay, to give you a bit of a timeline. So
all right, so I mean, I'll hold out hope. The HBO Max thing just really it's like is a little nervous about what could be on the chopping block, but I mean, I guess at least the like with the DC stuff that was getting axed, like they were saying it's because they want a more like cohesive, more kind of what do you call it? Like big budget, like theater movies instead of like just kind of smaller straight to streaming movies. So maybe if they're not saying that specifically about the horror movies, maybe it's safe, but I don't know.
I mean, if they've already shot it, as much as they can Batgirl, I'd be surprised if... I don't think they care about Final Destination's reputation in the same way they do DC, so...
Right, yeah.
I suspect they'll happily shit it out one way or the other, but we'll see. I know Evil Dead Rise had some test screenings, so that's actually definitely finished shooting.
Yeah. So I was a little worried about that at first, but I'm pretty sure that's safe.
Yeah. So hey, but there you go. So that's looking forward a little bit to FD6, but we do have to still rate Final Destination 5. So I'll take it away, Tim.
It's a little tough because the obviously the big strength of the movie is the kills. I think they're very fun, they're very entertaining, and they're very varied. So and there's a decent amount of them that it helps keep the movie going forward, and that's the main point to watch. And if you're watching a Final Destination film, that's probably why you're watching for it anyway. Just the cons are just the characters are so boring and bland and lackluster that it's just really hard to care about any of like the story or driving points of it. It's more just like waiting for the kill in between the stuff that's happening. So I don't know, probably sounds like I'm being like a little bit negative, but I don't know, it is still an entertaining movie. It's definitely not the worst of the franchise by far. I kind of, since I didn't really remember much about it, or I feel like I don't hear many people talk about it, I was kind of expecting this to be like really overly bad, but surprisingly wasn't. It's it's still fun for the over the top kills and everything, but I don't know. I think I don't know if a 5.5 is too low, but I think that's what I'm gonna go with for now. 5.5. Very entertaining kills, but not really much else going for it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think I will go on the try. I'll say 6 out of 10. The kills are a lot of fun and probably make it my second most enjoyable of the franchise. Is it objectively the second best movie? Probably not, just because the characters are rough enough. I don't think the wait between kills is too bad, admittedly.
Yeah.
Because I think, most of it is just here's the setup for the kill, here's like the build up to it, and then the payoff, and it does that kind of a bunch of times, much like a slasher movie, just with very different styles of death. I think the ending's fun. I think the final joke is fun, even though it doesn't necessarily sit with the rules all that well, because the other two being killed means that rule's irrelevant anyway. So it wouldn't have made a difference. Not just to explain that, not that he shouldn't have died. He was always going to die because he was still going to be killed with the plane, just like they were. But it wasn't because the other guy was going to die anyway.
Yeah.
He was just going to die regardless. Nathan was going to die regardless. Anyway, but yeah, kills are fun. There's a couple of silly logical things, like the federal guy being so adamant that like somehow Sam's guilty of the bridge going down, even though that's physically like impossible. Wacky over the top kills, and yeah, so
I wouldn't have minded the cop thing if maybe like they made him a little goofier and like more over the top. Like it would have been kind of funny if he maybe it would have seemed a little weird because like this was pre 2001, but like if he really did think that Sam was like a terrorist and like like that could be like a funny thing. But it's more he doesn't really, there's not much like comedic about him.
Yeah, so there you go, 6 out of 10. That's where I'm sitting at.
Do you I don't know if you thought about it beforehand, but could you do like a quick ranking of the series?
Oh sure. 2's in first place, easy. And then I'd probably put 5 just because the kills are silly enough that I like. Obviously the characters are the worst, but like I'm here for the kills, and like I said earlier, it doesn't do as much of that stupid like I'm seeing the signs bullshit that like plagued a lot of the other ones. And you have to put there's not a lot of them putting the mystery together here, and even though it maybe makes less sense for a movie, I was like, okay, I'm so glad we're just ignoring that and we're just having the kills. So 5's second, and then third place, I think 4 probably goes there now. I'm conflicted about the last 2 spots because the kills are definitely better overall in 3, but I think it's more disappointing in 1 because it came after 2 and it lost the personality that 2 had. And 1 does have that one really great kill that kind of inspired what a lot of the future movies would do. I'll say 1's fourth and then 3's last. Sorry.
My ranking is pretty close. I'm probably just gonna switch 5 and 4, but so for me, 2 obviously the best, and again, like we said, like by a very long gap. Like it's 2 is like way up there, and then next down. For me, it's 4, and I actually think 4 and 5 are pretty close. Because it's mostly the same reasons, like that I think like they both have some pretty fun and entertaining kills. But I don't know. I think 4 just kind of made me, laugh a bit more. Maybe some of the characters were a bit cheesier. That I don't know. It just got me.
They both have bland lead characters, though. 4 and 5 definitely both have have the bland. Like the main guy in both 4 and 5 are both like just like sleep inducing. And honestly, like that's kind of par for the course for most of the series. Like except for the first one, I feel like because Devon Sawa is kind of like very manic throughout the first one. Maybe.
But I mean, other than that, like even 2, I don't think the main character was that great.
Well, I think 2 and 3 have dull characters and how they're written because of the straight man, but I think they're better than 4 and 5 just because, like, I think AJ Cook and Mary Elizabeth Winstead are better actors, so at least they carry themselves in the scenes a bit better, even if their characters are kind of dull. Whereas the guy in 4 and the guy in 5, they're just like, they're kind of like mediocre like TV guest star actors, and that's basically all they are. So they have nothing to add to it. They can't make diamonds out of shit.
But yeah, so my ranking would be 2, 4, 5, 1, 3, which I really did not like 3. Like that one was really disappointing. And like you said, maybe because it's like right after 2 that. And maybe that props up 4 a little bit for me as well, because 3 was so disappointing. That's it's not that bad.
Yeah, 3 has a couple of decent kills, but like it takes itself super seriously, and so much of it's like all this miserable high school stuff, and
yeah. I think that's a big thing too. Like I don't ever need to go back to high school. Like stop.
It probably goes the hardest on the investigation side, because at least in the second movie, they meet a character from the first one, so they sort of like skip some beats and get to the point a little bit. But in 3, they have to discover it all kind of, and they kind of spend a lot more time sort of getting into it. And there's a whole photograph thing of like predicting like the death and stuff. And
it's like you were saying, like they just really need to. At this point, we know what the series is about, so we don't need these long, drawn out scenes of them questioning what's happening and stuff. That is one thing that's kind of funny with number 5 is I kept wondering, because usually throughout the movies, like someone will usually bring like, oh, like I saw a news story or I looked up online that this happened to someone else, so I kept waiting for there to be a scene like that, and I thought it was kind of weird that there wasn't. But then obviously because the ending, it's like, oh, okay, they don't really know that yet.
It's because none of it's happened yet. So that's reasonable enough, I think. Well, there you go. That's the Final Destination franchise. It's got its ups and its downs. And I know some people like 3, but I genuinely think it is the weakest for a number of reasons.
Yeah, I really did not like it. Sorry, 3 lovers.
They're just big fans of the rapper name dude who's the pervert who says he's the ladies' man. They're all big fans of him. But there you go. That is
the sun tanning bed death is pretty good. Like I feel like that's pretty memorable. I'll give him that.
Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say a minute ago. Like I can't believe the one that has a extended sequence set in a hardware like store is the one that's the weakest. Like that should be like a gold mine for Final Destination.
That's true. Yeah.
Jeez, you could set a whole movie like where they're trapped in the hardware store. Like, oh yeah, that's a great idea for a Final Destination movie, Tim. Right? A group of characters survive something like they do, and then they find themselves locked in overnight at like a hardware store. Like for me, it's B&Q. For you, it's like what do you call this place?
Like Home Depot or something.
Home Depot, yes, that's the American equivalent. So it's like shit. We have to stay in overnight, like in like a sort of shopping mall style scenario. Except instead of there being killer robots, everything's just trying to kill them, and they have to survive the night. Yes,
that would be cool.
There you go.
I wonder if there are like more movies that are going to like do something similar to what Prey did and try to do like
back to the basics, simple.
But like a different, like completely different like time period or something, because really like you could do Final Destination like any time really,
That's true. I hadn't thought of that. The only problem is though, if you set it in a vastly different time period, that the budget skyrockets because you have to have older cars, you have to have you have to CG out backgrounds so that you don't have like modern stuff peeking in and stuff,
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of horror movies, you don't get a lot of horror movies that are period pieces unless it's sold that they're in the forest with a hut.
Yeah.
Because it's too expensive to do like the city streets and stuff and the time periods.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously there's some the Conjuring movies, they're set in the 60s and 70s or whatever, but
Even like stuff like that, it's not like as hard because you're not like walking around the city usually.
Yeah,
You just had like a house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so they choose their locations very wisely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can find a Final Destination movie where they're trapped in a location for most of it. There you go. That's my pitch. Go on, do it.
They're trapped inside a cube.
A space station.
Actually, Final Destination in space would be pretty cool.
Yeah, like what if something happens to the space station, but then like one has a vision, they're able to like stop it from happening, and then it's like, oh, all the space stuff is going to start doing things now.
Yeah.
Oh dear. But there you go. That is our thoughts on the Final Destination series, and of course mainly Final Destination 5, which was the topic of this episode. You can let us know what you thought of it in the comments. I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers for the month, so thank you very much to Tyler Hess, Indy Palacios, David Sharp, Bordnow, Christopher Moy, David Brown, Al Tradesman, and Alison M. Fordyce. This is our producer tier on Patreon. You can support us though at any amount over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and get some bonuses for your trouble. At the $3 tier, you get a bonus episode every month. We just did The Innocents, which was a Norwegian film, which was quite interesting. And at the $5 tier, you get even more streams, which is just a casual show where every month me and Tim talk about all the different horror movies we've been watching that's not for the show. And Tim usually makes a little horror quiz for me to test my might on. So you get those two bonuses. You get some early access at the $5 tier. And there's some other stuff as well. So go and have a look and see if you're interested and want to support all the content and keep streams after midnight coming. So go and have a look-see. Otherwise, like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications if you listen to the audio version on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast from. Give us 5 stars, a review, follow us on Twitter at Screams Midnight, and share us out with your horror-loving friends. And that's basically all we can ask. So, thank you very much. I'll tell you what's coming next time because even more streams will be there for patrons in a week or so's time, give or take. The week after that, though, when we have our next regular public episode, me and Tim have got a debt to pay. We owe the next Twilight movie, so it's going to be that kind of episode where we are maniacally trying to make sense of the decisions made in Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 1, the penultimate Twilight movie as well. So
what if we just stop there? If we don't review any other ones?
You mean just the last one?
I mean, like, we do Breaking Dawn Part 1, but never Part 2.
Yeah, there's only one left.
No, there's Breaking Dawn Part 1 and then Breaking Dawn Part 2.
Yeah, but you said stop after Part 1.
Yeah.
So you said we never do any of the other ones, and I'm saying there's only one after that.
Oh, okay.
That's all I'm correcting is that you implied plural. That's all.
Well, you never know. They could come out with a prequel or something.
Oh God, don't give them ideas, Tim. Don't give them ideas. So we're going to do that next, and then by then, comfortably, Orphan First Kill should be out, so that'll likely be what's after that, and then we'll take it from there. And at that point, we'll be deep into planning for anything extra we're doing for October. It won't be like a ton. It won't be a October-thons of a few years ago. It'll probably be similar to last year's, but there's some extras, and we'll do what we can. But
it'll be fun.
Yeah, so we'll do some fun stuff. I think what you can look forward to in October is that we'll definitely be finishing off a couple of franchises because we have one more Hellraiser left and we have one more Leprechaun left. So,
oh boy,
those are definitely wrapping up in October, and we'll see what else we want to do. But that is Screams After Midnight, so thank you very much for joining us. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies. We'll see you next time. We're out.